Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Jennifer Surtees, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Liz Crean. Today marks the 60th anniversary of the end of the Malayan emergency, a war that lasted for 12 years and claimed thousands of lives. The Malayan emergency was declared on the 18th of June, 1948, after the murder of 3 European estate managers by guerrillas working for the Malaysian Communist Party. While the British commitment was largely a politically driven hearts and minds campaign conducted to bring Malays on side, troops were also committed to fight the counterinsurgency. An advance party from the 38th Squadron RAAF was operational by June 1950. The Australian government also committed 6 Lincoln bombers of 1 Squadron RAAF to Malaya and a team of Australian Army advisors to train the British Army in jungle warfare tactics. In 1955, the Australian Army was committed. 2 RAR was supported by 105 Field Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery. 3 RAR and A Field Battery replaced them in 1957, conducting successful operations which led to the state of Perak being declared secure in 1959. 1 RAR and 101 Field Battery replaced them in 1959 and conducted many patrols, including the occasional crossing into Thailand, following communist guerrillas and driving them back into Malaya. While the Malayan emergency was officially declared over on the 31st of July 1960, limited communist guerrilla activity continued for some years afterwards. This afternoon, we remember the Malayan emergency. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and survivors who returned home. We are honoured to acknowledge Mr. John King, President of the Return and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the past of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Cecil Charles Anderson. Cecil Anderson was born on the 16th of May 1924 in Queensland to Cecil Anderson and Lydia Mai Tripkini, a Nuji woman. He was the fourth of 6 surviving children. As a boy, Anderson, known to his family as Barney, was removed by the authorities and sent to the Margaret Marr Memorial Home for Boys in Wynham. By the time the Second World War began, he was working as a station hand in the Gympie region. He enlisted on the 24th of May 1941 and was called up for full-time service that December. Transferred to the AIF in mid-1942, Anderson was sent to the Guerrilla Warfare School at Wilson's Promontory, Victoria, in the September. After completing the course, he was posted to the 2nd Independent Company. He served in New Guinea, including in the Markham and Ramu Rivers campaign in 1943 and in New Britain. Anderson was discharged from the AIF in June 1946 and worked in a variety of jobs. With the outbreak of the Korean War on the 25th of June 1950, the 3rd Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, was already in Japan, but was well short of its required complement of troops. As a result, the Australian government called for 1,000 volunteers to help fill the ranks of the RAR's 1st, 2nd and 3rd Battalions. Anderson volunteered as K-Force, which had a service term of 3 years with 1 year of active service in Korea. He and the other recruits joined 3RAR in Korea at the end of September 1950. In October, UN troops drove into North Korea in an attempt to reunite the divided nation. In 3RAR's first battle, known as the Apple Orchard, A Company, of which Anderson was a member, played a supporting role. Anderson was also directly involved in the Battle of the Broken Bridge near Kujin and in the fighting at Konju. In this last battle, 3RAR suffered 9 men killed and 30 wounded. One of the wounded was Cecil Anderson. He had been shot in the abdomen and hip and was evacuated to Japan. On rejoining his battalion in May 1951, he next took part in the Battle of Malayan, where his company commander, Major Jim Shelton, said that his sense of humour in the midst of heavy fighting had helped lighten the mood and kept morale high. Anderson returned to Australia in 1952. He remained in the Army and was sent on a promotion course in September 1952. His former battalion commander in Korea, Lieutenant Colonel Frank Hassett, gave him a reference declaring that Anderson was an excellent leader. Promoted to corporal, Anderson served as an instructor at the 19th National Service Training Battalion until December 1954, when he was posted to 2RAR and promoted to sergeant. He was sent with his unit to Malayan in October 1955 to take part in combating the communist insurgency there. By early 1956, the battalion began patrolling, but the insurgency was coming to an end. On the 4th of March, Sergeant Anderson led a 12-man patrol into the Malayan jungle. That afternoon, he discovered an enemy hideout and began a cautious approach when 2 shots rang out, hitting Anderson in the chest, knocking him down. The rest of the patrol began returning fire, while Anderson calmly gave orders and provided covering fire. His men carried Anderson back on a makeshift stretcher where a priest administered the last rites. He died at 4 p.m. as his comrades tried to get him back to base. For his leadership and devotion to duty, he was posthumously mentioned in dispatches. Sergeant Anderson was laid to rest the following day in the Commuting Road Christian Cemetery. He was 31 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, one of the 39 Australians who died while serving in the Malayan emergency. In the photograph displayed today beside the pool of reflection, Sergeant Anderson is standing second from the right. This image shows Anderson with other members of the 2nd Australian Independent Company taken in New Guinea around July 1943. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Cecil Charles Anderson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.